What's up, you guys, and welcome back to Your Hair Made Simple, the podcast. I'm your host, Shannon, and we are here to help you embrace your natural hair with clarity, confidence, and courage. Today's episode, we are tackling a conversation that I'm so excited, really thinking about how we are navigating the mental loads of our hair choices as we also navigate everyday life and showing up in society. And with me for this conversation, I have Dr. Ayanna Abrams, who is a licensed clinical psychologist. She is the CEO and founder of Ascension Behavioral Health, and she helps to support Black women through navigating race-based trauma, mood disorders, burnout, and just navigating everyday life and relationships. So I'm so excited for her to join us and talk about this topic of how we can navigate the mental relationships that we have with our hair. So Dr. Ayanna, I will turn it over to you to say hello and to share a little bit about your own hair story and how it's connected into this mental health work.
Yes. Hello. Thank you for the warm introduction. I'm really happy to be here. And this is such an important conversation, and hopefully it's an ongoing kind of conversation and reflection for your audience in this way. It's such an important part of our lives, culturally, historically, politically, right, socially, emotionally, racially, ethnically, right?
All
All the isms, right?
Yeah.
So something that obviously I have personal stories around when I think about, kind of women in my life, right? Kind of laterally or kind of other older generations, younger generations. I have nieces in my family. When I think about conversations with men in my family and kind of men in my community, right? It's something that is always a part of our conversations. So I really appreciate us being able to talk about it, not only in terms of the physical and the aesthetic and kind of the external, but really slowing down to talk about the internal, right? And the implications and what our hair means to us, and just kind of how we learn that along the way, but also a lot of miseducation along the way that factored into our emotional health and our mental health as it relates to our hair. So I love this. As soon as you messaged me about this, I was just like, yep, we're in there, because there's not a friend I haven't had a conversation with hair about. There's not a colleague, a Black woman colleague I haven't had a conversation about hair about. There's not a mentor I haven't had a conversation about hair about. And there's not a Black woman client I haven't had a conversation about hair about. Even if that's not part of their presenting concern, it is a part of how they present to the world, and it's a part of how they understand themselves. So it comes up with all of my Black women clients at some point, regardless of their level of functioning. My personal story with hair, I imagine is fairly common. I am a daughter of Caribbean immigrants, but I also grew up with a mother who didn't do my hair. So I grew up in a house, and I think that's possibly a little bit less common, because there's a 10-year age gap between myself and my older sister. My earliest recollections of hair were my sister doing my hair. And it not being pleasant by my, essentially, maybe 14-year-old sister, 13-year-old sister, right? 18-year-old sister, right? So I don't really have pleasant memories. I don't necessarily have memories that had like traumatic impact with them, because I know that there's a whole other kind of storyline around that and getting burnt and all this kind of stuff. And Sunday hair wash day, like I don't have a lot of memories around that. I was like, my hair got washed, but we didn't have like Sunday wash day.
Yeah.
Right. Like that actually was not a thing. But I do remember early on, my mom would take me to the salon. So we would go to the salon, and we were 7-day, I grew up 7-day Adventist. So we would go to the salon either after church, or we would go to the salon on Sundays. And I remember us having to find a salon that was open on Sundays because many Black women were in church. But we're not in church on Sundays. And that's the day that we take care of the house and get our hair done, right? So I remember that being, and I grew up in New Jersey. So, and I grew up in a mostly white neighborhood in New Jersey. So I wasn't getting my hair done in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I was going up to Newark, up to Irvington, over to Plainfield to get my hair done, because there were no Black hair salons in Scottsdale, New Jersey. There might be now, but there definitely weren't then. So those kinds of memories, right? So even some are even shared between me and other Black women who I've talked to about hair. I don't have those kind of core stories about, like I said, kind of wash day and mom and those kinds of things. Mine were salon or sister. And then by the time I was kind of late elementary school, kind of moving into middle school, I had braids a lot. Right. So they started at the kind of medium-sized box braids, but then micro braids were in. So then we're moving away from we're moving towards hair salons that were now specifically African braiding salons, because now we're getting into the micro braids, right? So now we're going to a different part of New Jersey. Now we're up in Newark and Irving, Jersey City. And my mom would leave me there for a day, and I got 5 hands in my hair, and we going. She's like, I'm not sitting here for this. So that is something that I do in terms of like time given to hair in my household. It wasn't something that my mother, I won't say value, but it wasn't something that my mother was going to spend time on.
Yeah.
Like her own time on, right? So she was full-time, kind of corporate, kind of worked in insurance, but I don't have this recollection of it being so important to her that she would learn how to do it. Yeah. But it was important for her enough that it's going to be done. But it ain't got to be done by me. So she might have been my first, experience of like, we're going to delegate this. It doesn't have to be by my hand. It's going to be done, right? And having enough money to be able to have other people to do it, because I know that I had a lot of friends where their moms had to do their hair. They couldn't be in a salon, right, once a month getting their hair done, because that adds up financially, right? But we were middle class, so getting the hair done wasn't a financial issue. So yes, and it was African braiding salons. And then in between that, I'd have a perm. So perms came in, and I remember my sister being not supportive of me getting a perm. I don't know if she understood the chemical piece of it. I don't know if it was about like political stuff. I'm not sure, but I knew I wanted one because my friends had perms, and because I already internalized this kind of projected imagery and narrative about my hair being difficult. Yeah. And my hair not being pretty when it is more coarse, when it is more coiled, right? So for me, braids gave me long hair, right? And a perm gave me longer hair. So those are things that were really, really important to me. So I would feel a lot more insecure when I needed a perm. Yeah. Right. And when it was nappier, when it was harder to comb through, I know I would feel a lot more insecure. So I'm using all these different accessories in my hair to cover up the fact that I need a perm, and I can't really pull it into a ponytail because I was sweating yesterday at gymnastics. Like stuff like that would come to me. And I'm in gymnastics with all white girls and all that. So it would show up in all these different areas. So I had a perm through high school. I'm pretty sure I had a perm. My mother had changed it to me getting a texturizer. And she said something about that's healthier. She's like, but your hair's not going to be as straight. And I remember not liking that. Yeah. And I was just, I want a texturizer if it's going to be less straight. So I remember we had a tussle around that. Her something about a texturizer. I think she heard it was healthier. And by that time, I was in Dominican salons. So then we were no longer going to Black salons. It was Dominican salons. Because of it was something that I remember tussling with her about because it confused me, because she said that the chemical would be healthier, but it would be higher heat from the hair salon. And I was like, isn't that not great?
Yeah. What are we comparing here?
So throughout the rest of high school and early college, it was Dominican hair salons, because that was the like Latina heat. Yeah. You needed this heat. Get your hair as bone straight as possible, and I would get a doobie. So you get your hair done real quick, you get your wash, you get it wrapped with your pins, and leave, right? So it was also quick. Yeah. Quick. Yep, with a doobie. So now my hair's wrapped every night. So now I'm getting into silk scarves and all this stuff to keep my wrap, my bump, all that stuff. So that was that era. I was in college, still getting perms. It was perms or braids, perms or braids, perms or braids. Yeah. Then I went to graduate school in Chicago. So now I don't know anything about hair salons.
It's cold in Chicago.
So but I was coming from Syracuse.
Oh, okay. So, fair. You know, the Southerner in me.
Yeah, I knew cold already. This was just, this was not even more snow. This was just a different kind of cold in Syracuse. So now I'm in graduate school. Now I'm a bit more on my own financially. And I remember the first year of grad school, I started talking to salons about a perm. And one of them quoted me like $150. And I was just like, in Jersey, this is $45. What do you mean? Like, there's no way so I think I did it once, and I knew that I couldn't sustain doing that. And I actually, the woman who would do my sister's hair, she would get these like Senegalese twists sometimes. The woman who would do my sister's hair was also a professor in mental health. And I was fascinated. I was like, wait a minute, Donna does your hair? Like, Donna's a professor over at UIC.
Yeah.
like doing all this like research about kind of Black health and Black mental well-being, all this kind of stuff. And she does hair on the side to make money. And she does her son's hair. And I was just like, I want to meet Donna personally. So Donna started doing my hair. And that was, since I first started getting perms, that was when I stopped getting perms. And I haven't had a perm since Donna started putting Senegalese twists in my hair. So I started getting twists, and then my hair was quote unquote growing out. And so that was my first time having this like language that was in the zeitgeist also now about going natural.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I have gone natural in graduate school, and it brought up a whole bunch of professional stuff. But Donna would do my hair every 2 months or something like that. So I get new twists. That was my graduate school style.
Yeah.
So it would either be Senegalese twists, or it would be now natural like puff.
Yeah.
So now I'm into all these like hair accessories that kind of tighten my hair up into this like little like small like puff at the top. So now I'm learning about TWAs.
Right.
So now right?
Now you're in your natural girl era. Truly getting your hair out. You're figuring out what it actually means.
Product one, two. So all of that started then. Just amassing products for curls. And that's where Shea Moisture comes into my life. Like all these other products come in. And then that pulls me into me being in Atlanta, and it's hot.
Yay. Welcome.
It's hot in Atlanta. So now I'm trying to figure out twist outs and all these things, and it's hot. So we got to figure like what's going to happen. So now we're back in some braids.
Yep.
It's too hot here to be fighting with my hair, and I'm sweating and all this kind of stuff. So we're going back braids, twist out, braids, twist out, braids, twist out. And by that time, I had two of my best friends get sister locks. They would brag about them for years, and they would say, when you coming over? When you coming over? And I would say, no, it's too permanent. No, I can't. They say, when you coming over? Best hair care decision. And I love their locks. I love watching them grow. And I was just like, no, I can't. And then this is now 7 years. So 2018, summertime, I'd come across a runner who had locks. And I was just like, I'm tired, Brandy. Like, tell me about your locks. And she was just like, best decision for herself, but also best decision as a runner. That there's nothing that stops her, right, in terms of running. And I was just like, oh, so this feels like a bigger decision that I can make just around my physical health because I was getting more into running. And she gave me the person who did her hair, and I made an appointment. And that was it. My locks were maybe like this long when I first started. They stopped like right here. And 7 years later, so I've been to the same sister loctician since then, Bella Roberts. And yeah, I know what my friends were talking about. Locks is it. It is it for me. Like this is where we are. This is where we're gonna stay.
I love your journey, right? And I think because you said something about like not necessarily like having those core experiences, but I think it's like what is core to you, right? Like my mom didn't do my hair after the age of 3. And I'm the oldest sibling, so I don't have an older sibling. So she just outsourced it, and I went to the salon. And so I don't have like too many memories of like other. Like one day I was talking to my dad. I was like, "Did you style my hair as a kid when I had to go to school?" He was like, "Yeah, I did." And I was like, "I don't remember." Like I was like, "I don't remember y'all doing none of that, none of that." But I think it's like there's still so many other commonalities, right? Like that college, graduate school era being kind of like where I'm alone, like I have to figure out what to do. We have an episode on becoming a product junkie where you're like, you're really just trying to learn, but it's like what works. Like surely something has to help.
And what do I do with these products now that I have them? And then be so excited when you find something that actually works.
Yeah. So I love that your journey is so varied in terms of like styles and also in terms of like regional experience, right? Because I think that makes a really big difference. And so I'm curious for you, like now fast forwarding, right? And like you said, hair is something that you're always talking about with your women clients. Like hair is always something that shows up as a topic of conversation. How has that kind of like informed, like just even your own personal experience informed like how you're showing up and navigating these conversations with the women in your lives, with the clients in your life, and what are they saying, right? Some of that, like, I'm tired, I don't know what to do, or the time management, or I need to outsource this, or I need to look professional, right? All of those different themes. Like, how are those things showing up in those conversations?
Oh, they're showing up in so many different ways again, because they show up as, so there's one way which it can show up with my Black women clients as a point of connection for us. So a point of connection where they will talk about how beautiful my hair is. If they have locks, right? I'll have a client who we might be in an intake, they're going to be like, hey, sister, because they're talking about like sister locks, right? So I've had that come up with clients where it offers them some comfort. I've had clients who have talked about, seeing me on social media, and it's something that kind of made them feel more interested in me because I'm a natural girly, or whichever way that helps me to appear more authentic. That's still a projection. They don't know me, right? But it is something that like Black women do connect around in some way. I know it is something that people offer me, particularly with my locks. They offer me a lot of compliments on the beauty of my locks, and it does make me think. I wonder if people think that I am more attractive with my locks, and I know that I have felt more attractive with my locks. Right, something that was really interesting about. I'm going back into my personal piece, but I know something that was really interesting that I've kind of reflected on every now and then about my journey is that I used to think a lot about however my hair was and how insecure I felt and how sexually attractive I felt to others. And I would notice the kind of feedback I would get based on if I had a TWA and if it was kind of really cold, or if I had blown it out and done a twist out. So if it was bigger, like a softer blowout, a softer twist out versus when I started my locks versus where my locks are now. And I had a lot of like different thoughts and feelings about attractiveness to Black men, whether they were giving me direct feedback about it or whether I'm just kind of seeing it kind of in the media. And it really did factor into my sexuality, right? And my confidence and kind of how I felt romantically and sexually. So, I mean, I had thought about writing a book called Kinky. It was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. Like, I was really in terms of like my personal process and
we
bringing
might
in
need the book.
I'm like, listen,
the book.
right? I was just like, listen, maybe we should not put that. Maybe I should copyright that before anybody get right. But I was thinking about kinkiness of hair and kinky in terms of sexuality and how my confidence changed, right, in terms of my aesthetic, right, based on the length of my hair and like length checks and like all these things. I'm just like, oh, but I think length checks, are those rooted in white supremacy? Like all these things that would come up. There are conversations that are coming up also with my clients in these ways in terms of the importance and the value on how they look and the gaze, right? So a lot of my clients would be less focused on how they felt about their hair. It will be focused on how are other people going to feel about my hair. And if my hair is not how it should be in the corporate space, or if it's not natural, because I still get perms. So what does that mean when I'm with this space and I'm not natural enough? So can I go to Curls Fest? If I have a perm, right? These are real things that would come up with clients. Like, what spaces am I allowed to be in? Bonnet gate are things that come up with my client. Like, these are real things.
No, because it's like, let people know peace. Okay, let people know peace with their bonnet.
Listen, right? So there's like a lot of conversations around that, and it's respectability politics, right? And it's not just about again, how we're dressed. It's always been about hair. It's about the Crown Act, right? So these things are coming up with my clients all the time, right? So there's a way in which, one, it can be a point of like common interest where clients will make mention of it. It depends on the client. I will do my best to really kind of not make mention of how clients look, but depending on the client, if I do notice something different about their hair, I'll offer some humanity in where I'll say like, oh, your hair's a different color. Wasn't that color 2 weeks ago? Like, tell me about that. Or if I have clients who do start locks, right? It'll be like, oh, what are we doing here? Is that a braided band? Like, what we do, right? So there's just some language that we need to be more shared in that way that I think does bring us closer together. But there's the other side of that where clients are distraught about their hair, whether from a medical standpoint of clients navigating alopecia, traction alopecia, they're navigating hair loss due to stress, due to a new medical diagnosis. I've worked with clients who have what we call, they're called body focused repetitive behaviors, BFRBs. So an example of that is trichotillomania. So when a client pulls their hair. So working with clients who have that impulse control disorder called BFR, body focused repetitive behavior. So trichotillomania, where I've had clients who are pulling out their hair, they're pulling out their eyelashes, they're pulling out their nose hairs, they're pulling out their armpit hair, they're pulling out their pubic hair, right? That now is a mental health issue around that, but it has different implications. Not less, but it has different implications for a Black woman pulling out her hair than a white woman, right? So things like that come up that oftentimes the conversation isn't really culturally sensitive around
Yeah.
something like trichomania, but we have to have a different conversation around that. If you are now noticing patches in your hair won't grow back because you
Yeah.
pulled out so much of your hair. You pulled out so much of your eyebrows and now they won't grow back. So things like that. In terms of the respectability politic of that, where it really does go into the mental health and the mental
Yeah.
health disorder reigns. And again, it's like a lot of people don't talk about trichotillomania in Black women, right? They don't. And
I've
a lot
just
of Black
heard this term for the first time. I was like,
okay, yeah.
oh, tell me more. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of Black women, a lot of people don't even realize that that is a thing, right? So you might be twirling your hair, but if you start pulling on it, right? So it's an anxiety kind of based a disorder that's specific to
Yeah.
hair. And it could be all the hair on your body. You could pull leg hair. You could do all that stuff. So it'll come up in those ways. Another way that it shows up clinically when I'm paying attention to depressive patterns and loss of motivation, loss of interest, and loss of energy around your hygiene, I will talk to Black women about washing their hair, about styling their hair. If I kind of notice that, that becomes part of their symptom package. You are not doing your hair. You are so distressed. And Dr. Mbila Shaka actually does talk about this. She was talking about a term called hair depression, where that is a part of a depressive profile. It's not in the DSM or anything, but it's part of a depressive profile that she is considering culturally, that's more culturally bound in terms of what that looks like differently, right, for Black women if you are not doing your hair. And like I said, it could be washing, could be styling, feeling in much more distress about doing your hair because you might take 90 minutes every night to do your twist out. And if you are severely depressed, you do not have the motivation to do your twist out. If your body is aching, I have clients with chronic pain issue. They're just like, I can't do my hair the way I could. If a client has MS, if a client has fibromyalgia, those are things that we're not thinking about in terms of you being able to sit for 2 hours and twist your hair up. They're just like, I can't do that anymore, right? So things like that. So I have clients who are maybe more likely to cut their hair, and that's for medical reasons, not for aesthetic reasons, and not for the revolution. That is because physically I cannot maintain my hair anymore, particularly as it relates to locks and hair maintenance. There can be a lot of judgment when we see those videos on social media where the stylist is doing somebody's hair that has a lot of dust in it, a lot of dirt. They haven't been to the salon in 5 years, and you see all of this judgment in the comments. And one of my first things is like, oh, has that person been depressed for 6 months or 6 years? So they stopped maintaining their hair. So now we see all this matted hair that's coming in. So this is something that's like entertainment for people on social media, and like, oh, I wouldn't touch that. You better wear your gloves. You might catch something from them. But to me, that might be a person who is severely depressed and they finally make it into a salon. And yes, their locks are matted, and now their locks are all kind of matted together. And sometimes we have stylists who are very sensitive to that, but then we have stylists who turn it into this moment and say, this is why you got to get your hair done every da-da-da-da-da. I don't work with people who can't come here every 6 weeks, but I've had clients who lost their jobs. They can't pay for sister lock maintenance. Right? They on YouTube trying to learn how to do like 1, 2, 3, 4, like the crochet pattern. So like there's all these different things to factor in that shows up clinically with clients, but I think about how that shows up socially that really affects like shame, right? With how Black women show up with their hair based on what they can pay for, what skills they have. I don't know how to cornrow, y'all. And I have been read for filth my entire life that I can't cornrow.
It's okay. This is a safe space. I feel like for your hair made simple, I'm like, we need to get a cornrow class going. I don't know. I literally have been thinking about that for a while. I'm like, what does that look like if it's virtually? How do we do that? Or if it's an in-person tech out? Like, guys, you heard it here. We're going to figure it out. But it's okay. It's okay because it's necessary.
I still get judged for not knowing there is this community aspect, but there's still also a lot of judgment within our community. If you I can't tell you how many times my Black card has been revoked because I can't cornrow, right? I was like, and so it literally turns into, I was having this conversation 2 weeks ago. Well, can you at least braid? And I'm like, yes, but like,
what can you at least, like, please don't bully me.
Thank you. Please. Not too much on it, right?
But like, my skin is still, I'm still Black. This didn't go nowhere.
This measure of Blackness, right? What different types of hair can you do? How did you grow up? So it's things like that that my clients do talk about sometimes when they are not as skilled or proficient or get really overwhelmed, right, by hair, that then they become questioned and they have a lot of self-doubts. And there are all these ways in which it comes up that can really affect their self-esteem, their cultural esteem, their esteem as it relates to like them upholding their gender appropriately. If you can't do hair, like it's such a nuanced
Yeah.
conversation. So those are just some of the ways in which it can show up clinically, like that it shows up in
Right.
session, but they're just, we can be talking forever, all right, about different ways that it shows up.
But it sounds like, right, there's all these different symptoms for how we treat our hair when we are feeling anxious, right? Like whether that's like manipulating it, pulling at it, or even if we're experiencing depression where we are avoiding our hair because we feel a sense of overwhelmed by it, if we're maybe burnt out, right? And so then there's the other piece of just like everyday life, and maybe if we are natural, right, like it requires a space of learning and showing up and giving it attention that we've never had to do before, and that can be overwhelming and cause burnout as well, right? So I think when we're encountering those things, right? Because honestly, like you've just given some flags that I've never even given consideration to. I'm like, I know a handful of people that are twirling their hair and like picking, like little things, and we don't think about it like in any type of way. But how are we able to, I guess, like when we encounter those things, like for women who are in these spaces, like what are some things that we can be considering in terms of our hair as we're navigating these just feelings of overwhelm with our hair, the feelings of angst, the feelings of burnout? Like how can we, I guess, give ourselves grace in our approach?
Yeah, and that was exactly what I was going to speak to. What I think is really important as a starting point is to be able to offer yourself the compassion and the reminder, right, that the ways in which we tend to view ourselves and the standards or kind of the guidelines, right, are not rooted in us.
Yeah.
Right. So we have been taught from a very young age that, again, that our hair is difficult, that it's something to be fixed and perfected and managed and controlled in this way. And when you receive that message at a very, very young age, that's what a lot of us are navigating as an adult. Our hair is something to control and to tame, right? So our relationship with our hair is already pretty wrought, right? Depending on what kind of messages or kind of imagery has been injected from a very, very, very young age within our families, within the church, within the salon culture, within our community, within our ethnicity, but also with media images, right? So something to kind of offer yourself some release in is like, hey, this is a part of my body. This is something that is part of my health as well. Oftentimes we don't see our hair as part of our health. We see it as this kind of extension of us to control. Like, it leaves for a very, very wrought relationship. Because as we all know, you can try to control your hair all you want, but you wake up and take that scarf off, baby. Your hair said, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, right? So this is a relationship. You got to get with your hair, right? Tabitha and Donna, you got to get with your hair. It's a relationship.
Town hall meeting. Hair come down to the front.
Yes, right. It's and again, it's an aspect of your health. It's also a reflection of your health, right? Your hair care, right? So we tend to think about taking care of our hair just as a means of the aesthetic piece versus what does it mean to really care for your scalp? What does it mean to understand your follicular health? Right? What does it mean to understand the patterns of the health of your hair and your scalp and your skin as you move through different seasons? The same way we change up, what kind of lotions we use based on whether it's winter or summer. We want to pay attention to our hair, right? But we don't think about it like that. We think about it just as something to control versus something to care for, right? So I want to kind of implement or kind of reinforce that piece, particularly in terms of health. And also being able to offer, some education around burnout not being an individual kind of moral issue. We tend to see, and we've learned that burnout is because of me. I'm not doing something well. I'm not skilled enough. I'm not efficient enough. I'm not, pretty enough, whatever the things are that make this so difficult, right? Burnout is something that is about a larger oppressive system, right? And when it comes to our hair, it's part of a larger oppressive symptom, right? So the burnout around it is because we have been taught to control it. If we had learned, and if it was still safe enough for us to allow our hair to be in its natural state, we would not be burned out. As the way in which other cultures are allowed to have their hair in its natural state, right? But because of the more racist beauty standards, that's why we're burning out on our hair, right? That's why, one, the beauty industry, right? That's why we are the main people in the beauty industry. Because we have been offered so much language and kind of imagery around our unattractiveness. I didn't want to say ugliness, but if we want to go there. But that has led to this anxious need to control our tresses, to control our hair. And there's a very real implication of that. I also recognize that based on our hair, we haven't been harmed. So it's not this thing where it's just like a thought exercise, like just love your hair. There are very real implications,
Yeah.
more specifically for Black women, based on that gaze about
Yeah.
how other people perceive us and how much they are willing to dehumanize us based on our proximity to whiteness, which is length of hair, its complexion, its texture of hair, it's all these different things. So it also makes a lot of sense, the pressure that we have on our and that we put on our hair, because it's not just about lifestyle. Sometimes it's about our livelihood because we have lost jobs. And it seems dramatic, but this can be about life or death for us, right? Based on who is in power and based on who's willing to be violent towards us. So I never want to minimize
Absolutely
the
not.
pressure and the time that we place on that, but I do want to underscore or highlight that it's because of the system that's much bigger
Right.
than us, which is why we need spaces where we are having, these kinds of conversations. So what I will see kind of, clinically, right, is that there's this, there's this anxiety, there's this pressure, there's all this research around hair and different types of hair and colors and all this kind of stuff that can go from feeling like creative and feeling like, a really healthy way in terms of self-expression, and then becoming kind of stressful.
Yep.
What I've also noticed, which is also something that is that I noticed in my, I guess we'll call it a health journey, that when I went natural, there were a lot of other ways in which I was paying attention to my overall health.
Yeah.
I noticed that I was paying attention to a lot of different changes in my body, where I was drinking more water.
Yep.
I was paying attention to more products and oils on my skin. So I started focusing on this whole, like, this kind of overall, like, health goal, right? And I have noticed that with a few of my clients, that them paying more attention to the health of their hair also shifted how they were viewing their overall
Yeah.
physical health. And they were using different products. They were using different lotions. They're going to Whole Foods. Like, all this other stuff started changing. So that was also kind of interesting for me to notice, that there wasn't only an overwhelm product junkie, but there was this, like, reinvestment in, like, overall health.
Yeah.
For people who stopped using chemicals in terms of perm. So that was something that was also, I think, like, beneficial in some ways for a lot of people, when they started viewing their hair as a reflection of their health as well.
Yeah. I love that connection, right? Like, when you take the pause and you're able to put yourself back in the relational seat with your hair, right? And say, okay, like, this is something I have to care for. Then it opens up to looking at a deeper introspection in terms of, like, how am I caring for my body as a whole? For your clients that you see, they get to that decision, right? Like, okay, I'm going to start treating my hair as, like, a point of health. But, like, also knowing that we're navigating this system that has this feeling like we want to show up in certain ways, but we also want to go to the gym. We also want to do our jobs. We also want to, for people who have kids, take care of their kids, be a good partner, like, be accepted, right? Like, navigating like that weight in one hand, but also, like, hopefully the health weight in the other hand. Like, what has been the thing that's been able to, like, bridge the two together? Like, how have you seen people work to that place where they're even able to say, like, this is a decision that I'm going to choose for health, or, like, combat the burnout, combat the depression, combat the anxiety, combat, like, that mental load that they're carrying, to even decide that they're going to do something different anyway.
I work with people from all over the country, depending on where they might live regionally and what the weather is. So, I've had some clients who, where I live, they might get locks because it's lower maintenance, right? It literally, which I receive the benefit of that, right? It's literally less time. People have received, and people talk to me, right? You get 5 to 10 hours back in your week, right? Because you're not doing something nightly to your hair. You get to throw on your bonnet and go to bed. And when you wake up in the morning, you fluff your hair out and you go, right? So I have clients who will get locks, or who will cut their hair lower, or will go down to a fade because they don't want to deal with the maintenance of it. They don't want to be in the zeitgeist of it. They don't want to be product junkies. I do not have time for this. I have had clients who have made that decision because of different changes in their lives. Like, oh, I have children now. I can't be doing this every night, so something else needs to happen or change. So whether that means I now get braids or twists, or that means that I now start wearing wigs and I do lace fronts and I get weaves now, just to kind of manage the maintenance of it, so that aesthetically it's still this, but I'm just popping on a wig, right? They do that to help manage the time and the energy and the stress of that. I have some clients who, again, they're just in process of figuring it out, so they're changing their hair up. And again, that also continues to feel like a creative outlet for them.
Yeah.
And they're figuring out kind of how the time piece works. But they know that, hey, at this stage of pregnancy, I'm going to get braids. for this stage of pregnancy. I'm gonna get braids for, the first 6 months of, postpartum, because my time and energy is gonna look, and the last thing I want to be thinking about is hair, right? I have Black women clients who get their hair done for birth because they say that's the last thing that I want to be thinking about, right? And this big
braids.
Exactly, right? So there are ways in which they will use the different styles, right, that are available to us to really manage kind of time and energy at different points in their lives. I have clients who will, depending on where they are in their careers, I have clients who have gotten different hairstyles when they're getting a promotion in some way. So whether that means they've gone and I'm going to start getting, a weave, right, because of how the respectability stuff that that comes up, or they've had a lot of anxiety because now I'm a VP and I can't be as creative with my hair. I used to have red hair, but now I feel like I need to, tone my hair down and keep it, dark brown or black. And I need to kind of wear like things like that come up when they are fearful about how they might be perceived in a room. I think gendered stuff comes up with my clients in terms of masculinity and femininity. What does it mean in terms of how they are perceived, but also how they feel? So when I'm working with clients who identify as non-binary or are kind of, in a space of kind of questioning or just learning more about themselves in terms of their gender or sexuality, they might play around with their hair. So they might play around with different styles in terms of where they are and whatever their spectrum of kind of femininity or identifying themselves as, female or male or non or gender fluidity. They'll play around with their hair as an expression of that. So it shows up in all these different ways that, again, can come with some anxiety about wanting to get it right, wanting to have a routine, wanting the inside to match the outside, wanting to be accepted, wanting to be attractive, which is kind of a little bit higher of a piece than accepted, and then just kind of navigating how that looks, right? And depending on, again, I have clients who are in interracial relationships. They're like, yeah, this never came up with my Black male partners. But I started dating a man who was, Latinx, or I started dating a white man, and the conversations are very different. Right. Or I can't wear my bonnet when I'm visiting my in-laws. Like there's all these different things that come up that are really important, right? And that women want to have more valued conversations around, but they might not feel as safe. So they bring them in. Either they bring them in or I might bring them in to the therapy room. One, to help them not only understand and kind of in their own voice share what they're thinking and feeling, but also the anxiety that comes up, the pressure that they feel, the demand to be perfect, and kind of how to just navigate the stress in their body around that. And oftentimes what we're also looking at is, do you have other women to talk to about this? So how do we also find you community of other Black women to talk about, right? These different kind of circumstances and these different changes. So I'm always helping my clients move towards community. So this is not the only space that you have.
I'm curious. So, right, because one thing that you brought up is perfectionism. And I think that's definitely a camp that I have lived in at points. And so for folks who are listening to the episode, or folks who are at home, or maybe they're thinking like, do I have some of these feelings showing up in my relationship with my hair? What are maybe some like one or two questions or thoughts or things that they can use as self-checks to say like, hey, like, how am I approaching my relationship with my hair right now? Or how am I approaching this specific topic when it comes to my hair? Are there any kind of like self-checks that people can do to be more aware if they've never given it thought before?
So something that they can ask themselves is, when it comes to my hair, what am I trying to control? All right. And that I'm trying to control how they think about me. There's a whole other conversation. I'm trying to change my hair because I want to be more attractive to my partner. And, they said they like long hair, right? What am I trying to control? Is it someone else's gaze or perception? Is it my likability? Or is it down to like, I'm trying to control the tresses and make sure my hairs are laid down, right? Where's the control? What's going to happen to me if I can't control that? What's going to happen to me, right? So what I call that usually with my patients is like walking yourself through the stress cycle. What's going to happen? Because usually where we stop is whatever's on the other side, I'm not even trying to think about. I'm just going to control it here. Walk yourself through the stress cycle. Expose your body to what's going to happen to me. Am I going to lose my relationship? Is somebody never going to try to talk to me again? Am I going to lose trust at my corporation because they don't think that Black women who look like this are smart? Am I going to be judged by a family member? Am I going to be perceived as more masculine, so I might be more likely to be violently attacked on the like? Walk yourself through the stress cycle. What's going to happen if I change my hair? What am I going to lose? what's somebody going to say to me, but really kind of getting more attuned to what you are trying to control, or kind of what's the fear that's there. And then being able to kind of walk yourself through, okay, well, what would I do in that circumstance? If somebody on the street did say something wild to me about my hair, what would I actually do? Does it actually matter to me? Like, what would happen if a colleague said, you changed your hair, let's have a meeting about that? What would I actually say if Colleen said that to me and sent me an email about my hair, right? Like, walk yourself through that. The thing that you fear, if that actually happened, you might have some words for Colleen. You might have some words for HR, but like, just what would you say versus trying to avoid it and control for Colleen? If Colleen had the audacity, what would you do or say, right? So things like that, like walking yourself through the scenario that you're very fearful of. And I will always say, listen to your body. What's coming up for your body? When you think about your hair not being done, and you have this big meeting next week and you couldn't get to your hairstylist and whatever it is that might happen, what's happening? My heart starts racing. I start sweating. Like, what's happening, right, for me? I have racing thoughts. Like, where's the anxiety? Am I actually having a panic attack? Like, things like that. I really want you to really kind of attune to your body. What starts happening for me if I don't have control over this thing? And you'll get a lot of information about where your coping mechanisms might need to be. I also recommend looking into perfectionism. You and I have talked about perfectionism, right, in the cohort, right? There are all these different ways it can show up. Definitely shows up as it relates to our hair and us viewing it as something to control. But there's workbooks. One of them is called the CBT Workbook for Perfectionism. I highly recommend it. For hair and just other parts of your functioning, because usually if you're a perfectionist about your hair, that's not the only area. It's just one area. It's showing up in other places. So things like that, right? Being able to sit with and confront the control piece. Perfectionism is about control. It's not about anything else but control. So what is your relationship with control? What's your relationship with imperfection?
Something else that I was thinking about too as you were talking is like a conversation that we've had before of like, one, if people are thinking about how is this person going to perceive me? Like, how can I avoid having X, Y, and Z reaction? It's like, well, we can't really avoid how people react, but we can have boundaries in place for ourselves. Like, boundaries are not things for other people. Boundaries are for ourselves. Boundaries are for us, for ourselves, and how we will react in terms of what other people will do or say. And so, like, what are some of those boundaries that we can have in place? Like, if I do have this encounter with my hair, or if this person says this thing to me again, then like there will be results or things that I will enact on my end, not as punishment or anything, but like as protection or, whatever that emotional boundaries. Yeah. So that's like one that I reflect on often.
Good. Yeah. Again, they're like the emotional boundary, and really thinking about when we're able to kind of spend more time with our emotional boundaries, it gives us some space to consider, like, how much control am I relinquishing to other people about how I look at how I feel about how I look, or how I feel about myself. What am I giving over to Colleen? What am I giving over to this workspace? What am I giving over to LinkedIn? What am I giving over to this conference, right? I am relinquishing my own sense of self. And like, when did I start doing that? Who taught me to do that? Who taught me that how other people feel about me is more important than how I feel about myself? Typically, there's answers. If you really give yourself time to think about that, there's the larger kind of media landscape, but maybe there's messaging, direct messaging that you did receive in childhood and adolescence that said that being approved by someone else is much more important than how you feel about yourself. And that's actually the starting place for you, where you really want to look at your self-esteem in some of those ways, right? So being able to ask yourself some of those questions about when you began giving this over to other people or to Instagram filters, when did that start? And what does that mean for you, right? What's the control and access you're giving other people to determine how you feel about yourself? That could just be a helpful starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that so much. You said something earlier in the beginning of the episode when you were talking about like thinking about what our hair means to us. I'm very curious. What does your hair mean to you?
Oh my goodness. Now, hair, because I think at some points my hair was something that was much more related to, again, beauty and attractiveness, and appearance and aesthetics and likability, and and that correlated with it needed to be straighter and longer. And it was actually more so about length, right? So it'd be like, oh, my hair is here, but every time I get my hair done, is it longer? Is it longer? Right. And I would get reinforced by that by peers, like, oh, your hair is getting longer. Your hair is this, right? So it would get reinforced when I would hear kind of boys in my neighborhood or kind of boys in school talk about like, yeah, she got that long hair, right? That would get reinforced, and it sends Black women of a certain hair texture a very, very specific message, right, about beauty and attractiveness and belonging and acceptedness. The you said the relationship I have with my hair, the story that I have now.
What does your hair mean to you now, today?
Wow, what does my hair mean to me now? For me now, my hair is a point of creativity, although I'm not too creative. I'd be scared about putting color in my hair. You should listen. There's a whole video of me cutting my hair when I turned 40 and getting these layers.
It's so cute.
Thank you. It was a whole crisis in there that still comes up for me, even though I have my own business. I have a lot of kind of connections that I feel really solid in my career. I was really scared about going too bright and going too red when I first got my hair color. So it still comes up for me, even though I'm in a lot of, that's how ingrained the messages are, right? About how creative I'm allowed to get. But it has become more of a point of creativity for me. It's become a point of curiosity for me. And it's become a point of reflection in terms of my health.
Yeah.
So when I am much more stressed out, I've had a really hard year for a lot of personal reasons, and a few of my locks fell out. That was actually more of a signal to me of like, you're doing this or this or this, and yes, you're eating more, and yes, you're doing this, but you need to be drinking a little bit more water, and like, oh, you stopped taking your iron pills months ago, right? So your nutrients are really low, right? So it's those kind of things where now I'm using my hair as kind of one of my points of like vitality. Like what's going on with you, right? If your locks are coming out right around here, like there's something that's going on with like my health in some ways. So I'm able to use it now more as a point of like reflection of health. But like I said, also that kind of curiosity, kind of creativity piece. When I get different headbands, I'm still scared because I don't know how to use these headbands. I saw these lovely ways in which women wrap their locks, and I'm just like, how'd you get it up there? So it's like those kinds of things like gives me this like point of creativity, not only for my hair, but also going with my outfits and how I show up in session. So that's more where I've landed with my hair. Like I said, playing around with color, playing around with length. I've considered like an undercut. So like things that also help me feel even like a bit more like bold, right? So kind of like those ways, I'm stepping out of this like box of like doctor and this versus like, being able to step into something that has a bit more like flair for me now that I'm in my 40s.
We love it.
There's a huge piece to this. I'm just like, am I trying to stay young? Child, I don't know. But yeah, so that's what my hair means to me now.
No, I love it. But I think that's also so important, right? Because I think even for you as somebody who is a studier or a researcher, you do the work, like you help others, but then you still have to navigate those decisions as well. And I hope that people hear that and they find some freedom in knowing that like it is a continual journey of questioning, of reflecting, of, accepting and reaccepting and maybe rejecting and then reaccepting again, and so like that there is no shame in being on the journey. So I appreciate you sharing that and giving that perspective as well. Then to wind us down, I'll ask
we're winding down. Okay, we made it.
Yeah, we did it, Joe. We made it. No, but my last two favorite questions. So for those like who are just navigating these, you gave us some great reflection pieces, but like any other pieces of advice for the women, the individuals who are listening, who are just carrying the load of their hair decisions, how they're going to show up, whether it's the gym, their home life, their family life, their in-law life, their job life, whatever that is, and care for their hair and let it be healthy and not be overwhelmed or burnt out or fatigued by it, right? Like any final pieces of advice that you would have or tips that you would share?
Yeah, I think this goes back to, what I was saying a few minutes ago. I've been thinking about your hair, like treat your hair how you would want to be treated. You want softness, you want tender love and care, you want curiosity, you want interest, you want attention paid to you. It essentially kind of by other people so they know what you like and what you don't like. You want, flirtation, right? You want to kind of play around with stuff. You want some playfulness. You want some energy about it. Treat your hair how you want to be treated. Treat your hair how you want to be treated by your friends, by your loved ones, by your partners. Again, you want interest, you want care, you want softness, you want compassion. You want flexibility that as your hair is changing and growing and as you are changing and growing, that people can go with you on that, right? You don't want to be forced, right? You don't want to be kind of overdone and burnt out and all these things, right? You don't want to be talked negatively about, right? You don't want to be abused, right? Treat your hair how you actually want to be treated. Treat your hair how you treat other parts of your body,
Yeah.
right? You lotion your skin, you get fancy
Yep.
oils, you got your preferred scents, you got your daytime scent, you got your date night scent, you got your
Mhm.
nighttime scent after your treat your hair how you want to be treated. It's not just this thing that is outside of you to control in some way,
Mm.
right? It deserves the same tenderness and care that you want for the rest of your body, but also for your soul, for your psyche. Treat it like that, and you will notice something different in your relationship with your hair. I promise you.
Yes.
Promise.
I love that. That's so good. Like the other parts of your body. Treat it like yourself because it is part of yourself.
Yes.
My heart's so warm. My heart's so warm. Okay. Well, then my last question, you know what it is? If you could say
Mhm.
one affirmation to your hair right now, what
Mhm.
would it be?
Yeah. I was thinking about a few different ones, but the one that I'm landing on is like, we in this together. I got you. We in this together. Right. And
Yeah.
there's something about that kind of attunement. That's what I mean by that essentially, right? This attunement, like we are in this together, right? I'm not going to lead you astray. I'm not going to treat you poorly. Like
Yeah.
we got this. You're in this together. Whatever road we take, whatever fork we go, we are in this
Yeah.
together. I will care for you.
I will pray for you. Yeah, that's a commitment to self. That's a commitment to self. This has been so good. I was excited for good reason to have this episode. And I think, right, like just opening up the conversation about our hair and mental health because it matters. It matters so much in how we navigate our day. So, Dr. Ayanna, I thank you so much for joining us to just open the door to these conversations. And for those who have been listening to the end, thank you guys for staying along on this fun ride with us. And, you know, if you want to learn more, you can check out other episodes of the show. You can subscribe to our newsletter in the description box. And that's all we got, folks. So until our next time, remember that all hair is good hair and your hair is good hair. Thanks for listening. Bye, y'all.